the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes. I'm feeling like this might be my time to shine with you, with you, with you. I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes.
Hi, welcome to In the Middle and Out of the Box, Episode 7. I first wanted to go over a couple things really quickly. First, help is on the way. Okay, Brightline heard you clear and strong. So their ridership is up 87% since December of last year. 24% of that ridership is actually coming from Boca and Aventura. So both Boca and Aventura has been a hit. And so subsequently what's happened is they're in need of more cars because the ridership is so intense right now, and just especially premium cars. So they've sent a bunch of cars down from Orlando that they were holding up there for their Orlando service, and they're sending them down. They're here. And that should also alleviate some of the pressure on the pricing because, again, it goes based on supply and demand. So hopefully there'll be more tickets available and more premium tickets available. A lot of people are taking the premium, which is great. Hopefully those prices will level off a little bit now that there'll be more cars. They've also, because of the demand for the Brightline Plus, the 5-mile radius travel by car, they were doing Teslas. They needed more cars. So what they've done now is they've partnered with Uber. Uber's sitting there waiting. You have a reserved car. It's included with your ticket price, again, your premium ticket price. And actually what they've done for the smart car tickets is that it's not complimentary for the smart car, but what they have done is now they're charging a flat fee so that you're not subject to surge pricing at certain times of the day or something with Uber. So that's a fair thing to do also for the smart car. So they heard you loud and clear, and help is on the way. So I just want to let you guys know, again, these are the kinds of things that happen on new services. You got to just let things ease out, and they're working on it. But everybody so far, I've heard 9 out of 10, everyone loves it. So help is on the way. The second thing I wanted to talk about was in my last episode, I talked about water. And I just want to make sure that you guys understand why this is such an important thing right now, because the Army Corps of Engineers, the government, has removed the legal protections for South Florida users that have been in place since 2000, that if the water becomes restricted, they're the ones now in charge of supply management and not the local towns and resources. So those protections have been taken away, which sets a very dangerous precedent on how local water management is used or handled. So this is really important because, again, if water gets so scarce like we're talking about in 15 so years, 20 years, and the aquifers dry up, it's not going to be the local cities and towns that are going to have a choice of whether they can use their water or not. It's going to be controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers and the state. So those legal protections have been taken away now. So again, this is why it's so important to watch episode 6 and understand what we need to do to protect ourselves down in South Florida as far as water management. Okay, also, I have some interviews that are scheduled for next week, so hopefully in the next podcast we'll have an interview. And I do have my new feature this week, which is Interview on the Streets, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But what I want to do is start with our first slide. So I named it The Invading Sea. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the resiliency studies. Okay, so I was originally, when I was vice mayor of Highland Beach, I was one of the founding steering members of, there was a coalition of 13 towns eventually. Originally it was just 5, and then it went to 10, and we wound up being 13 towns locally down here in Southeast Florida that did a resiliency study. And what it did was give each town, once it was completed, a critical list, an intermediate list, and a list-to-do list of what needs to be done in their specific towns as far as resiliency and getting ready, hardening, things like that. And so one of the things that was really interesting is that some of the towns locally didn't even want to be involved. They felt it wasn't even worth it to be involved. I mean, this is one of the hottest issues right now, especially down here in South Florida. And as far as, king tides and flooding and sea level rise and everything else. So again, it's just amazing how some people, sticking your head in the sand isn't going to help, right? So we got to think outside the box. That's what this is all about. So I want to talk a little bit about the most vulnerable properties. So what I did is I went ahead and took some of the NOAA maps where they feel things are going to be in 2030. And so, it's interesting because I personally live on the ocean, on the sand. And everyone always says to me, "Oh my God, aren't you concerned?" And I'm like, "Not really." Besides hurricanes, that's a different issue. As far as flooding and sea level rise, the issue is not going to be necessarily on the ocean side. It's going to be on the intercoastal, all along the intercoastal, because the intercoastal is down at sea level. I know, like for myself, and most people that live on the beach side, we have a very high dune. So the dune comes up 10 to 15 feet, and usually the buildings are built on the dune. So, in addition to seawalls and everything else. So, I'm not really concerned about that at this point, but the intercoastal is really, as you can see on the NOAA maps, by 2030. They're going to be inundated in the intercoastal. So, if you see the light color blue, that's going to be underwater. You see the green is going to be very low-lying areas that are prone to flooding. And so again, everyone always thinks it's on the ocean or the intercoastal only, and this goes way out west because we have canals, we have streams, we have rivers, we have a lot of things. So lakes. So this is Boca. So I just wanted to start there with Boca real quick and show them their map. So again, all those properties along the intercoastal are going to have a problem. Now again, I put Boca Highland Beach because Highland Beach is only on the Barrier Island side, whereas the Boca is on the west side of the intercoastal here. And as you can see, along even in Highland Beach, it's just basically all the intercoastal. Very little issue with the ocean side. Same thing with Boca, continues up. And actually, you start seeing there, I think that's Tropical Island at the top, and we're starting in Delray there. That's going to be all underwater. So Delray kind of lights up here. And what's interesting is you can see I tried to, on the left-hand side, go up. I couldn't show it all on one map, so I had to cut it. So on the left side is up from Boca to border, and then the right screen continues on up where the left side ended and continues up, hopefully as far up as I could go. I think up to George Bush, around that area. So again, you see that the immediate need is the intercoastal. So what are some of these critical items that came out of these reports? Well, unfortunately, as a lot of these reports, they get looked at and then they get put on a shelf somewhere. So, or what happens is people or the towns, they only do like an a la carte approach. Well, we'll do this, but we don't really need to do that. Or we do this, but we don't have to do that. And that's not what they're about. They're about a systemic process of how you harden your city to make sure that it's ready. So, everything from raising lift stations, seawalls. One of the problems that Delray has is that when they did their seawalls, they didn't raise them high enough. They were told to raise them up to only I think it was 4.2 or 4.3 feet. I know, like in Highland Beach right now, we're over 5 feet, 5 feet 3 inches, something like that. I mean, we're continuing. I think it's just changed again. So, you always go for higher. And, we've talked about this. If they give you a minimum, even though that's the minimum, and everybody wants to do the minimum because it costs more to do a little bit more than the minimum, knowing that it's going to continue to rise, you're going to wind up saving some money. So, quick story. Highland Beach, when they were doing, this was years ago, prior to me being vice mayor, years ago, prior commissioners, they were doing, I think, the water pipes to the island of Bellito, which is in Highland Beach. So we have A1A, which is Highland Beach, and then there's a little island off that's connected with a little bridge. And at the time, they wanted to fund the water only along A1A. And all the people in Bellito were like, well, what about us? And we were like, well, we don't have money for you right now, and we're going to do it at a later date. Well, unfortunately, when they did that, they really were, again, short-sighted because it cost them 2 or 3 times more to eventually add Bellito Island at a later time. So again, if they would have done it originally when they were adding the water pipes, it would have worked a lot better as far as budgeting and things like that because it cost the city so much more. So again, it's penny wise, pound foolish kind of thing. So if we're given a minimum for a seawall, we really should probably shoot higher than that minimum, right? And knowing that it's going to continue to rise. Another problem that Delray has is something in their Veterans Park area where they've encased the park with seawall, right, on the intercoastal side, and water is bubbling up. So basically, what they've done is the water table is so high there that now the water doesn't have a way to go. It doesn't have anywhere to go. So now it's just sitting there behind the seawall. And so the way to handle that is through pumping and things like that. So that's another expense. So anyway, so that's Delray right now, and that's the NOAA maps for 2030 on what they're estimating the intercoastal side or the flooding will be. So I wanted to make sure you guys all got to see that. Okay, now one of the way we can harden our cities is the dunes, right? Dune mitigation, dune restoration. So I want to talk a little bit about invasive species and misplacement of sea grapes and vegetation. Now, I know for Delray, sea grapes is a huge topic, but we're not talking about the arches, okay? We're just talking about the dunes and the placement of vegetation and where the correct areas are to do that. So, and there's a reason for that, all right? It's not about, well, what just looks good or whatever. There's a reason for that because those dunes are your first line of defense. So unless those dunes are fortified and strong, that's not going to work for you, right? So they're going to continue to wash away. They're going to continue to, you can have breaches through and so forth. So how can we make those dunes as strong as possible? So dune mitigation. So one of the problems we have is that our dunes, especially, Boca and Delray and Highland Beach, we have a problem with people or the towns just letting the dunes kind of go natural, as you say. So we have invasive species, we have exotic species, we have sea grapes that have overrun a lot of the dunes, and that is not making a resilient, sustainable dune, okay? And if you think about it, what's going to make a dunes really resilient and strong, believe it or not, are sea oats. So sea oats are grasses, right? And they get planted, so you rip all of that out. You plant seagrasses, and what the seagrasses do is they put a taproot all the way down, and then once that taproot has gone down through the dune, they spread out horizontally, and then they start crisscrossing, and they start fortifying that dune and making it stronger. And as the wind blows and the sand blows, it continues to gather sand and build your dune up and up and up and up, and continue to move your dune out into the sea. So your beaches get longer also. So again, more protection for the city or the town or even the resident. So again, you can see here where they took out the overgrown dune system that was not being taken care of properly. They replanted all sea oats, and then on the right side there, you'll see that the sea oats have now contained a natural ecosystem that can be maintained and fortified through a storm. Those sea oats are going to hold that dune together to keep it from the water back. Here's another example, and here's an example actually of a dune that again they took everything out down to the dirt, replanted, okay, 2 months after planting, and on the right side there you have, I think it's 6 months. It comes back very quickly. This is what the dunes are for. This is their natural habitat. Sea oats thrive in them. And again, they fortify that dune. Now, I'm not negative towards sea grape, but they have a place on the dune, but it's not in the forefront of the dune, the foredune. So let's talk about placement of dune vegetation a little bit. So a natural, well-established dune, you'll see in the front there, you'll see, I have to get my glasses on, I'm sorry. You'll see there's a foredune, and then you'll see you have sea oats planted, and then you'll see you have other vegetation that's natural, and then in the back you see you'll have more sea grape and some trees and things like that. So there's a natural progression to the dune, but the majority of the dune is going to be sea oats and grasses, and again it gets further and further and further back is when you get your sea grapes in the back of the dune. Okay, and so that's really important because everyone thinks that sea grapes are the key to holding the dunes together, and in actuality, it's the opposite, and I'll show you why. First, real quick, the sea oats capture the sand. Again, as they're blowing, it just keeps coming down and trickles into the sea oats at their base, and then it just continues to, I think it's about a foot a year that they grow. the dune grows. So it's really a fantastic process. Okay, so sea grapes, unfortunately, what they do is there should be all the way in the back of the dune only. And basically what happens is when the leaves fall or when they get cut down, as you can see in this picture, nothing else grows on the ground because the leaves cover the ground. And so therefore nothing else, no vegetation, anything can grow. Okay, so that's one issue with them. The second is the roots. Okay, everyone's like, oh, but yeah, sea grapes have like sturdy roots. So they're going to hold the dune together. Well, let's think about that for a second. Okay, like I said, they actually do the opposite. So let's say you bake a cake, okay, and you put giant rods through the cake and you just keep putting giant rods through the cake. Eventually your cake's going to just kind of fall apart and crumble, right? Because these huge rods are being pushed through your cake. Those don't hold it together, they break it apart, right? The sand is falling apart. Whereas when you have sea oats and they start crisscrossing and covering themselves and go horizontally and fortifying, they're holding the dune together. So again, sea grapes have a place, absolutely, but just not in the front or the mid dune. So basically what the end result should be is very much like this, which is dunes growing, like I said, about a foot a year. You have soft sand, you have your beach continuing to grow. And I'm going to show you a little clip on how the right and wrong way to build a dune is. Now, this little clip is a little interesting because what most towns do is they pay for sand renourishment, right? And unfortunately, it's extremely expensive. And as we know, it doesn't last. It has to be done every few years because the tides and so forth, the natural cycle of the water just takes the sand away from their renourishment. The second thing is we actually are running out of usable sand. I know that sounds kind of crazy. We have a whole ocean out there, but there's only a certain type of sand that can be used to build dunes. And unfortunately, we're running out of that. So the other thing is that in addition to trying to do just the replenishment of sand, again, if the dunes are properly planted and properly taken care of and maintained, they build themselves, like I said, a foot a year, and you will see how the dune actually grows out and out and out and out itself. So it's a natural process that it's really important to watch this tape. And a lot of towns also use Christmas trees to kind of fill in dunes and things like that. But even if this town, your town doesn't, that's fine. But it's just an overall view of kind of the right and the wrong way to build a dune. Anyway, so have a look, and I'll see you on the other side.
A hurricane lashes the coastline, destroying beaches, boardwalks, and homes. Dunes were flattened, but the towns they protected suffered less damage. Now, as communities rebuild, NPR presents 2 Ways to Make a Dune.
The first recipe is a classic, friends. All you'll need is sand, water, wind, and a dash of beach grass. Start with the regular beach and add a little wind. The faster gusts will pick up grains of sand and start to pile them up. Now throw in the beach grass. It will slow the wind so it drops its sand. Dunes will begin to form, and the grass will keep growing, creating a mesh that helps prevent erosion. Salty waves will kill the grass closest to the water, so you'll have a stretch of empty beach and, where the grass survives, a line of dunes. That empty beach is important, though. It supplies sand and maintains the dune. The wider the beach, the bigger they will become, and the better they can protect the land beyond them. Every now and then, as sea levels rise, a major storm will flatten the dunes and push the entire beach inland. But don't worry, the dune will grow back in a dozen years or so. But hold on. What if there are buildings where these new dunes want to grow? What if you want the dunes back where they can protect those buildings? Well, friends, try the second recipe, the one used by many folks today. You'll need a few extra ingredients, some heavy equipment, a few additives, and a large serving of cash. First, push all that sand back down the beach. Of course, left alone, those piles would quickly erode, so you'll want to build them around a foundation. Discarded Christmas trees work well. Then add some old snow fences to keep pedestrians away and trap the sand, and plant some grass on top. Of course, with a shortened beach, there won't be enough sand to maintain your dunes, so you'll want to dredge sand from the ocean floor and rebuild your beach. Of course, any shoreline that sticks out into the ocean will be washed away, so you'll want to build up the beach in both directions. Now you have a working dune. Each time a major storm passes through, simply repeat. It will cost a lot of money. It will take a lot of labor. And as sea levels rise and the beach erodes, these dunes will become more and more fragile. But at least you won't have to move. Mother Nature's recipe is much easier. Just sit back and relax for a decade or two. And of course, you'll need to move that house.
This video was produced by Adam Cole. Vicky Valentine and Ben De La Cruz were the senior producers.
Okay, so whose responsibility is it to maintain the dunes? Okay, so that's a good question, right? So, of course, if it's a public beach, it's the town's responsibility. And I know Boca has their own actual, they do not use the rakers, they don't hire, they have their own internal through Parks and Recreation, people that maintain on their team the dunes and so forth. And I know Delray, I think, also has in-house. They do hire the dune rakers, but they have staff that, as far as how they take care of the dunes in-house or something. So, but whose responsibility is it? So we have the towns. If they have public beaches, absolutely, it's their responsibility to make sure these dunes are protected and maintained properly. One of the problems that we have is with residents, right? So we have a lot of residents along the dunes. In Delray, we have some in Boca, and we also have some in Highland Beach that live not in a condo, but their own private home, or in a condo. It's the condo's responsibility, but in a private home, okay? So when you have a front yard in your property, okay, when you don't maintain your front yard, let's say, code compliance comes out and says you have to maintain your front yard. You have to cut the grass. You have to, whatever, remove, brush, whatever the issue is that doesn't fit the code. So it's the same for the backyard, right? So if you have a backyard that you're not taking care of, code compliance should be stepping in to do the same, especially when that's our first line of defense, the dune. So if the dune runs into your property and it's actually on your survey and deed that you own that dune, it's your responsibility as the property owner, whether it's a condo, whether it's a house, residential, commercial, whatever. Same thing, obviously, for the towns. So there's a coastal construction line, but a lot of the deeds and surveys actually have the properties actually going into the high water line for private property. So I'm going to show you a picture of that. So here's an example of that where this house, which is kind of interesting because this house actually, you'll see the coastal construction line. There's a seawall coming down right in front of the house by the beach. But the property line actually goes beyond that. So their deeded property actually goes to the high water mark, which is about halfway down the beach. Now, a lot of property owners say, well, yes, that's on my deed, that's on my survey, but it's not my responsibility to take care of it and make sure that it's fortified and it's properly planted and so forth and replenished. Well, that's not true. It is your responsibility. Just like your front yard's your responsibility, your backyard's your responsibility, especially when people are counting on you, if you're a beachfront owner, to make sure that that dune doesn't breach and the sea come through because it's not being properly maintained. So what's interesting about this particular house, too, is if you look at it, you'll see that, and this is one of the problems that we've talked about as far as Vision Zero, the property is only deeded to, you can see where that line is, but the street. So what this owner has done is basically taken over a huge chunk of that street and easement that's not theirs for landscaping and driveways and so forth. So this is another example of what we had talked about. I think it was episode 3 or 4 about Vision Zero, but that's a whole nother subject. But this is a really good example of that. But getting back to the beach. So as you can see, there are several property owners, condos and so forth that have on their surveys that their property goes down to the high water mark as part of their deed and survey. So that is their responsibility, not the town's, their responsibility. Again, if it's a public beach, it's the town's responsibility. Okay, so let's talk about some new technology. So how do we solve all these problems, right? So we want to fortify our cities. We want to try to see what we can do to, do all these resiliency things that were outlined in the resiliency reports for the 13 cities around us. But what kind of technologies are coming out that are important? So here's one where they're actually trying to, University of Miami Marine Biology Department is actually trying to build a hybrid reef, right, to protect the shore. So basically another first line of defense, even before the dune. They're going to put basically another dune under the water, and it's going to have living coral, living animals on it. And this is going to be another line of defense to stop those waves coming in. So this is very interesting. That's a pilot program. I think it's being done right now down in Miami and in the Keys. And if it's successful, they're going to expand it. But this was a great idea to have another line of defense further out before it even hits the dunes. So this is one of the newer technologies. This is another interesting idea. We talked a little bit, I think it was I'm trying to remember what episode, but we talked about Waterworld, right? The movie Waterworld. Well, here's, they're doing an actual, in the Maldives, they're doing an actual floating city. And it's surrounded by land. And basically it's going to protect these cities, the city inside. And so it can ebb and flow as it goes higher, lower, but it's all connected and it's floating. So it's not going to be flooded in any way. Kind of like a floating dock, I guess you want to call it, but obviously more stable than that. So they actually are predicting that they're going to start starting to build this in 2024, and they're going to have it completed by 2027. So all this stuff is really happening. It's coming down the pike, all these ideas, and hopefully one of them will really work well. But what another great idea, out-of-the-box idea, to see how it works, right? To see if this really helps. It's kind of interesting, too. This is one of the pictures of the street. So, again, it looks just like a normal city, normal homes, but it's floating, and it's surrounded, again, by that cocoon of islands. So this is, again, a fortification of a city. Okay, this is another new technology that I wanted to talk about, which is really great, especially because we have the Gulf Stream right here in Florida. So to help with energy costs, especially coming down, 10, 15 years or so, one of the things that they're developing right now are these huge buoy-like devices that are underneath the sea on the sea floor, and they're actually gathering and taking in all the currents from large, something similar to like the Gulf Stream and things like that, large currents, and they're taking that and turning it into energy, and they're actually able to capture a huge amount of energy at this point. They've perfected this to the point where it's now feasible to move forward and make this even expand the projects. So this is another great idea. I've contacted and given this to the Miami mayor, especially coming off of Miami with the Gulf Stream right there. This would be a fantastic way to gather energy for Miami. She was very interested in it also. So again, we've got to keep our eyes open, what's coming down the pike and what's out of the box. Okay, switching gears. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is that Disney World wants to open their own airport. So they are supposed to break ground, I think, the beginning of this year sometime. And already several airlines have signed up to be part of this. It's going to be located between, I think, Animal Kingdom and Epcot. And I think Delta, American, a lot of them have already signed up to be participants. And again, this is another unusual thing that's going to happen. Disney feels like they should have their own airport, especially since I guess they stopped their service, Magic Express or whatever, from Orlando or airport. And this way it would be all kept in-house. And they could bring all their customers and clients this way. So again, it's an interesting thing. Wasn't aware of it. I just thought you guys might want to know about it. It's kind of neat that they're going to have their own airport. They obviously have the acreage for it. So that's another new thing on the horizon that's coming. Now, I thought since we're talking about Disney, I have to give fair share to Universal. And so what I wanted to talk about was Universal is actually coming out. It was just, I think, announced today. They're actually coming out with a new park, but this park is really different. This park is really for much younger children and families. So I know, like in Florida, we go to Disney when the kids are younger, and then we kind of transition over to Universal as they get older and into their teen years. This park is actually for very young children, and they're not building it in Florida, but I did want to just make you aware of it. They're building it in Texas, but supposedly this is going to be 97 acres, and it's going to be near Dallas. And it's going to be something that I guess is never been done before. It's going to be like extraordinary park that new things, new technologies, and again, really focused on very young children. So that's kind of neat that they're going to actually have something for the little ones. So I wanted to mention that. And then also, though, by getting back to Florida with Universal, Universal is also going to be putting their Florida Epic Park, or Epic Universe Park together. They have Islands of Adventure now and all these other parts of Universal. Epic Universe is supposed to be the next one. We're still waiting. We don't have a date of when they're going to start, but this is what it's going to look like, and this is in their plans. So they are going to be adding to that. Now, I did want to mention real quick, when we're talking about Disney and Universal, getting back to Brightline for a second, I think I mentioned to you in the Brightline edition that originally Brightline was going to put a station at Disney, and Universal said, whoo-hoo, what about us? And so Brightline's like, yeah, I guess you're right. So basically what happened is Universal donated, I think, 13 acres to put the station. And so it's going to be in between Disney and Universal. So it's going to be centrally located. And that's going to be in addition to the Orlando station that's at the Orlando airport. So there is going to be a station there. It's going to be somewhere Universal Disney area. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you guys knew about that. This is going to be where Epic Universe is. It's going to be a little off the beaten path. It's going to be in another section. I guess they acquired some more land for Universal. Okay, so this week we have something called Beat on the Street, right? So, okay, I went out and I wanted to ask a question to people in Boca and Delray. I did not do Highland Beach, but I did Boca and Delray. Well, first I want to say, okay, I was shocked, okay, because especially in Delray, people were actually like running away from me. I had the microphone. It says in the middle and out of the box. We have a little camera. We're just talking. We're laughing. We're talking to people. And I could actually see people see me, stop, run, and go across the street. I really don't think I look like I'm a dangerous person. But if you see me and you see me filming and you see me with a microphone, please come over, say hi. I don't bite. Just asking questions about Delray, or if I'm in Boca, the same thing. And it was just kind of funny to see how many people were trying to avoid me. But I was actually able to get some interviews. So hopefully it will get easier the more we do this. I'm looking to do this maybe once a month. I am going to try to incorporate Highland Beach. Highland Beach is a little bit iffy because we really don't have a city center. We have a city hall, but that's pretty much it. But anyway, so I'm going to try to do this once a month. But please be friendly, be kind, just come up. It's funny because the younger kids actually were like, "Oh, I was hoping you were going to ask me to be part of it." Actually, more the women were actually more friendly and open to it, at least could be convinced. But the men, barely anybody. So anyway, and Boca was a little bit better than Delray as far as being open and friendly. So Delray, you can work on that a little bit. But anyway, so here it is, and I hope you enjoy it. Some of the audio in the first or second one is not as good, but it gets better. So just stick with it. Okay, so do you live in Boca or Delray?
I'm half-time here.
Okay, and when you're in Delray, what are the things that you like to do?
I love all the restaurants here in downtown. We go to Cut very often. We've made friends with everybody around. It's really, really a great place to come.
Okay, and do you go to Boca also?
I don't.
Okay. So
Not
basically-
much.
Not much.
Yeah, I live here. I live right downtown,
Right,
so
right.
I usually stay here.
And if you do go to Boca, though, like what kinds of things do you do?
I actually don't go to Boca much. I go
Oh,
all
okay.
the way down to Lauderdale because my dad lives in Lauderdale
okay.
by the sea. So if I'm going to go south, I usually
You just go there.
Yeah.
Okay. And what kinds of things would you like to see in Delray that they don't have right now? Like, new things or recreational restaurant, any kind of things new?
Well, I mean, there's challenges with parking. Obviously, you see that, the meters and things like that, and that's usually a major complaint of coming downtown. I think actually they do a great job. They promote businesses. I'm the owner of this store.
Oh, okay.
So they promote us all the time.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a really nice store. They promote us very well, and they do all the art shows and the festivals and things like that. I think they do a tremendous.
So there's nothing you'd really like to see, like they don't have, or everything they have?
Everything they have is
Okay.
kind of fits downtown, yeah,
Okay,
and,
great.
and they're doing more.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's it's
Yeah,
always
now
coming
with
down the
Old
line.
Square and
Yep,
everything, yeah.
everything's coming up.
All right, well, congratulations on the business, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Live in Delray or Boca?
No, I live in Saratoga, New York.
Okay, so do you come here for a specific reason, or?
I rent a condo in Boynton Beach every year.
Okay, and what kinds of things do you come to Delray for? Restaurants, or? Yeah. Okay, and what about Boca? Do you go to that for something specific, or?
It's an Italian store.
Oh, okay. That's all I want. That's all I needed. Thank you so much. So do you live in Delray or Boca?
Neither.
Okay.
We're just here for
Visiting? Okay. And what do you like to do in Delray?
beach.
Beach.
Walk the avenue.
And walk the avenue. What about Boca? What do you like in Boca?
I haven't been to Boca in years.
Oh,
I used
really?
to go up there when this avenue wasn't so fixed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mostly just stay in Delray
Mostly now.
for the restaurants? Tell me, do you live in Delray or Boca?
I do live in Delray.
Okay, great. So what kinds of things do you do in Delray? Where do you go?
I mostly go to the beach. I've lived here my whole life, so I've done mostly everything down here.
Okay.
But I actually went to the beach today before I went to work.
Now, when you go to Boca, what do you do in Boca?
I used to go to school there, so mainly that. But I'll go to the movie theater down there.
Okay.
Nothing really special.
Okay. But do you
Yeah.
go back and forth a lot, or?
I go frequently. My dad's girlfriend lives down there, so
Okay, so you're constantly
yeah, I'm back and forth. Yeah.
Okay. And what would you like to see in Delray that they don't have right now? Like, a store or a restaurant, something, anything, a fun thing to do?
Just something new. Like I feel like things have been pretty stale recently, and a lot of new people have been coming down. So if something new would to attract them down here too, maybe that's another.
Do you have any ideas on, like, what kind of thing? Like a recreational thing?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not sure, but
Sure.
yeah.
Something new.
Something new.
So it's time
Something to
for
spice it up.
something new.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, welcome to In the Middle and Out of the Box, episode 7. This is our interviews on the street, and today we are also in Boca Raton. Hi, so where do you live? In Boca, Delray, Highland Beach?
We live in Highland Beach, and we love it.
Okay, and what would you work in Boca, so what kinds of things do you like to do in Boca?
Well, I love going out for dinner in Boca. There's a multitude of places to go to. I like doing a little shopping, over in, I think it's called, I forget the name of it right now, but I like to do a little bit of shopping.
Town Center?
Well, Town Center I love. Absolutely love Town Center. My store is definitely going through its changes, and I think it's hopefully, heading in a good direction. Love Max's Grill, my fave, my black and salmon all the time. So Boca's got a great little vibe to it. We love Highland Beach just because we look at the water every single day, and we're at a place that has a beach club, so that's been great.
Wow, that's great. Now, what about Delray? What do you like to do when you go to Delray?
Definitely love Atlantic Avenue. Love Atlantic Avenue. I definitely enjoy the Ray Hotel since that opened. I love Pineapple Grove. Love watching all the people. Like on a Saturday night, we were there for New Year's Eve, and that was definitely very interesting to say the least.
Were you like by the fireworks and the Christmas tree and all that? Or?
We actually were at a place called La Salva, and we were like on one of the side streets, but we heard the fireworks and we heard everybody celebrating basically. So it was great. It was great.
Now, what would you like to see that Boca and Delray doesn't have that you might like new thing as far as recreation, restaurant, store?
Well, I'm happy to hear about the Bright Line. I think that's a great thing to have, especially, to avoid traffic and, kind of lessen the severity of that. I would like to see maybe some more public pickleball courts, if they could. And most importantly, I'd love to see wider bike lanes, especially, on A1A. I'm an avid biker, and it would just be great, if they could do something along that line.
Any restaurants or anything?
Okay, Sweet Green, I want you to open up here. You're in Miami, you're in West Palm. Let's go.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Do you guys live in Boca or Delray?
I live in Boca.
Okay. And what do you like to do in Boca as far as activities, fun? What are some of the things that you do in Boca?
Yeah, I like to go to South Beach Boca Park a lot. I'm at the beach pretty frequently. Now it's colder, so not so much. I run there, go in the ocean, stuff like that. Restaurants?
Rocksteady, Jamaican Bistro.
Okay.
Fire.
All right. Now, do you guys go up to Del Rey a lot too, or?
Yes, I work over there.
And what do you like to do up in Del Rey? That's different or the same?
I like going on the Ave. There's lots of cool places there. There's also like a game room, Silver Balls. That's a great one.
Now, is there anything in Del Rey or Boca that we don't have right now that you guys would like to see? It could be a recreational thing, a restaurant, a store.
A roller coaster.
Are there
That would be
basketball courts around?
I think so.
Okay, so let's put some courts in.
Okay.
All right.
So some more sporting things.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Something to do kind of thing, right? All right. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much. So do you work or live
I'm
in?
retired.
Okay, and you live in Boca?
I live in Boca.
Okay, and what do you like to do in Boca as far as activities or restaurants or what do you like about Boca?
I love the weather. I like that it's convenient. You can get everywhere, and it's a pretty place to live.
Okay, and now do you ever go up to Del Rey?
Yes,
Okay, what do you like about Del Rey?
I love walking up the avenue, just like in Meisner, and I like the ocean there and the inner. The canal is not the canal, and thank you so much. Is very nice there, and it's warmer. I think Del Rey just feels a little warmer than Boca. Yes,
And do you like go to restaurants or stores?
everywhere, everywhere. It's nice.
Now, between Boca and Del Rey, what would you like to see that they don't have right now? It could be anything, even recreation, anything, restaurants, stores, anything. What are they missing?
That's a tough question. I don't know, maybe a place like Art Center where you can do stuff. The only place I know now is the Boca School, the Museum of Art. And I don't know any other places who offer, paint ceramics or do something like that.
Something artistic.
Exactly, because I was thinking, where can I take my grandchildren to do something? And I don't know where to take them, but I'll look it up.
All right, well, thank you so much. Okay, and then here's our science and technology. Okay, so I found this really interesting for those real geeky type of people. We have a green comet that hasn't been seen since the Stone Age. Okay, so it's going to be in the sky in early February, closest to about February 2nd, end of January, beginning of February. And the planet was in the middle of the ice age the last time we actually saw this comet. So the Neanderthals were still walking the earth. This is going to be really interesting. So if you have a telescope, make sure you get outside, make sure you look it up, Google it. It's a green comet, and it's something that none of us are going to see again. So I just thought this was really kind of interesting in my science and technology corner. Okay, this is something too. This is really kind of innovative and new in technology. Pavers are out. The new trend is porous concrete and driveway tiles. So this is an example of a driveway that was done in these new type of tiles that are being made available. Very hardened, and they're specifically for driveways, and they're also porous, so that water will seep through them, and this way you don't have flooding and pooling and so forth. So I'm going to show a little video about that, and then we'll be right back.
These guys laid down the coolest driveway of 2022.
Okay, now this is kind of a little, I don't know what you want to call it. I feel it is technology, because how neat is it to take all these old, if you have parents have them, your grandparents have them, these old little slides that you used to have when they used to take slides. And it's amazing how they can restore them and actually put them on photographs and things like that. So I just wanted to show this real quick for all the people that might have a whole box of these somewhere, that there is something you can do with them, and the technology is there now to do something with that. So again, just a little clip, and I'll see you right back. Okay, so this week's art, we're going to start off with something a little fun. I do have a lot of art this week, so I always love art. So this is kind of neat. Again, innovative, kind of fun. What a great idea, right? So this is all about cotton candy. If you're a cotton candy person, you're going to love this. So watch this clip and we'll see you in a minute. Okay, now this is probably one of my favorites for today. This is a musical road. Okay, you drive on these little pieces of the road at the right speed, and it actually is a song. And they actually have little lyrics and little signs of songs in there, musical songs and musical notes. So it's kind of neat to watch. So I watched it a couple times. I was like, how does it do that? But anyway, this is kind of fun. Again, innovative, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, this time I had to show you guys this. I found this and I was like blown away. I was like, this takes my prior July 4th drone show to a whole nother limit. So a whole nother element, a whole nother sky out of the universe and of the universe. So this is a sea life drone show. And I want you to take a look at it, and it's just amazing. And again, this would be fantastic for July 4th. So take a look. It will definitely be worth it to watch this. All right, don't go away. Okay, and then I'm going to end today for art. When I first came down here about 20 years ago, about 15 years ago, they started doing this beautiful street art show in Lake Worth. And they really found their niche here because no one else is doing it, no other towns close by. And they have these over 600 artists that come, and they draw, and they get huge sections of the roads. All the roads are closed in the town, in the historic district. And they allow them a piece of road and over 600 artists, and they get to draw with chalk. And it's just amazing, the artwork that you see. And it stays there for a couple weeks until it rains, and it's just beautiful. And I know there's a lot of new people here and in Boca, Delray, and so forth this year. Do not miss this. It's worth the trip. Lake Worth, not that far. Come on, guys. And it's just one of those beautiful days to take your kids up. They also, the last couple of years, have added a section where kids can actually do this themselves, kind of an interactive thing. They give them chalk and a little section to do. So if it's, it can also be a family event too. So this is, again, another one of the pictures. And you can actually see, if you look behind this drawing, where each artist gets like a section and they make beautiful, beautiful pictures. It's February 25th and 26th on Saturday and Sunday, and it's in Lake Worth. And I'm going to leave you on that because it's beautiful and I love it. And definitely something to see. And have a great week, and we will see you next week. Thank you.